Daily Detroit is brought to you by the community. Support our work at patreon.com/dailydetroit.
Hey, it's Jer. Today's show is in 3 parts. Ford has revealed more of their plans for Detroit's Corktown neighborhood. There is more detail, and I chat with the head of Detroit development for Ford, Mary Culler. Also, Mark Wallace from the Detroit Riverfront Conservancy joins me to talk about a new working partnership with the Huron-Clinton Metroparks Authority and what it means. But first, some stories to know around town, including the end of an era for a legendary local radio station. It's Wednesday, November 18th, 2020, and let's get started. Here's the latest with the pandemic. Today is the day the 3-week pause begins as new restrictions went into place at midnight. On Wednesday, the state of Michigan reported 5,772 new COVID-19 cases and 62 deaths, bringing the pandemic totals to nearly 278,000 cases and 8,190 fatalities. We've lost almost 10% of our intensive care unit headroom in the last 24 hours and are approaching critical levels statewide. Some hospitals on the west side of the state are already underwater. The newest is that the Michigan Education Association, the large union representing teachers, is calling for in-person learning to be temporarily suspended for all grades, and that Governor Gretchen Whitmer's orders do not go far enough. If you remember, she sent high school kids home but gave districts the option of being in person or not for grades K through 8. They also want K through 12 districts to stop making teachers show up in person at schools to teach virtual classes, with the goal of encouraging as much remote work as possible. It seems as if the question of is it enough or too much restriction when it comes to Governor Whitmer's orders will continue to be a tension point for the foreseeable future. Tuesday night's Wayne County Board of Canvassers meeting is normally a humdrum affair, but it gained national attention as the 4-member board deadlocked along party lines for a number of hours and initially denied to certify the election results from Michigan's largest county. It was a procedural play to try and slow President-elect Joe Biden's official win, but it also caught up 100 or so local races in the net. The 2 Republican board members seized on about 350 votes that were out of balance, meaning the number of voters in the poll books didn't exactly match out of 250,000 votes in the city. It's a common clerical error, and there were about 30 suburban precincts that had out-of-balance votes as well. But outrage and national attention really fired up as the Republican chair of the board, Monica Palmer, was willing to certify everything in the mostly white suburbs, but not in Detroit, an 80% black city. To be clear here, Michigan was decided by about 148,000 votes, a margin that would not be impacted in any meaningful way, even if all of the votes here in question were a problem. Which, to be clear, is not the case. There have been multiple legal challenges, and no fraud in the city of Detroit has been found. As the story spread online and on cable news during the meeting, it put additional pressure in real time on the board, with hundreds of people joining the Zoom call, decrying the move not to certify. The Wayne County Board of Canvassers reversed their decision in the end, certifying the results while asking for the Secretary of State to do a comprehensive audit on the precincts in Detroit that had found discrepancies. This all moves to the State Board of Canvassers on November 23rd, and the eyes of the nation will be on that meeting as well. So we might just be here again.
And if you don't like it, we're gonna kill you. 89X, you rock news.
Thursday at noon ends an era in Detroit radio as Windsor-based 89X, a rock station for 30 years, will be changing formats. In a message on their website, the Bell Media-owned CIMX-FM 88.7 warned listeners that, quote, if you're a new rock fan, you're probably not going to like it, unquote. You know, before rock splintered into a bazillion pieces, it was a special time in the mid-90s and early 2000s, and yes, I'm about to wax poetic here for a moment. 89X had their X-Blocks, and it's where I first discovered the call-in show Loveline. You know, CIMX also waved their Canadian and local flag pretty proudly. Canadian content laws helped keep the content kind of fresh, and they even experimented with techno on Saturday nights for a while. Their birthday bashes, well, those were something else. Not to mention, CRTC regulations were far more fun than RFCC. 89X, thanks for the memories and the margarita ball back in 2002. If anyone wants to pull together a Spotify playlist or something, has birthday bash memories, I'm all ears. Also, maybe the studio here needs some retro swag. What do you think? Give us a ring-ding-ding at 313-789-3211 or send that email to jer@dailydetroit.com. Let's share some memories. A couple of quick pieces of news from Rochester Hills in Oakland County. They have 2 new fire engines. Engine 1 is stationed at their headquarters on Livernois, and Engine 4 will be at their Meadowbrook station on Walton Boulevard. Also, their city buildings will be open virtually and by appointment only starting today and through the beginning of 2021. The plan right now is that the buildings will reopen to the public on Monday, January 4th, 2021. And well, you know why that is. Coronavirus, friends. By now, pretty much everyone knows about Ford rehabbing the historic Michigan Central Station, but there hasn't been very much clarity on their plans for the surrounding area. Late Wednesday, Ford revealed what's ahead for the 30 or so acres in Corktown. It's a campus that is of the scale, frankly, that we're just not used to here in the city in recent years. The work still requires city government approvals, but it promises to be one of Detroit's most impactful developments in a long time. It centers around the word mobility, and that's a word that gets thrown around a lot in industry circles. And to be honest, it's something that I get questions from listeners about every single time we talk about it. So a refresher. The time of internal combustion engines that use gasoline and diesel is going to end soon. Some countries, like in the UK, it will be illegal to buy such cars in 2030. In 2035, it'll be the same for the state of California, which would be one of the top 10 economies in the world if it were a nation. Now, that might seem like a long way away, but in automotive development circles, it's basically the blink of an eye. Mobility is beyond the car as we know it today. It's getting around, but not necessarily in a vehicle that you own. Plus, younger buyers aren't as enamored with cars as previous generations have been. Once-in-a-century pandemic notwithstanding, the sharing economy and the move to autonomous is continuing on too. So on this open campus, Ford is creating products here that go well beyond just the car. Maybe it's self-driving, or electric, connected, shared, and even using different modes of transportation depending on your needs and where you live. I wanted to get into the vision for this Michigan Central project, and who better than one of the key people behind it, Mary Culler. She is the head of Detroit development at Ford, and welcome to Daily Detroit.
Hi, how are you? Great to be here today.
This is just such a big vision. It's more than just the train station. We're talking about, I believe it's 30 acres surrounding Michigan Station. For people not familiar, like what is happening today with these developments and the 4 buildings and all of that?
Well, we're certainly excited to reveal our site plan for Michigan Central because you said it's much more than just a train station. It really is about a new mobility innovation district in Corktown. And so what we're going to be showing folks is not only the site development plan, but some of the designs and really bringing to life, this vision that we announced when Bill Ford announced it in 2018. It was really just a concept. And now the exciting thing is to really see how it's coming to fruition and coming to life.
One of the things that strikes me, and I will have links to the imagery and some cool sliders up on dailydetroit.com, but one of the things that really intrigues me is that this is a dense site plan. The idea of urban density was something that really seemed to matter to you all. Why is that? I mean, you're an auto company. People, I think, are used to wide roads and big things when it comes to anything involving, the Detroit 3.
Well, I think it's really important as we think about this development to bring people into kind of a center dense area so that a lot of this collaboration and innovation can take place. When we think about the Innovation Mobility District, we want it to be a vibrant place where there'll be new open spaces. The site plan definitely prioritizes needs of the community with sustainable amenities. And, the whole idea is to bring mobility solutions to this area. So you're going to see that kind of innovation happening. But at the same time, there'll be biking trails and retailers and grocery stores and other amenities that are important. But it will require density in order to support that kind of development.
Well, and this is a big investment for Ford. I think some listeners have asked me as we've covered this over the last couple of years, if you're going to do mobility, why not just throw a couple of bike paths on the Dearborn campus or something? Why such a big vision?
Well, clearly, as we think about the future of mobility, Ford is at the forefront of identifying what those mobility solutions are going to be. And so actually having a place like our Mobility Innovation District where we can begin to test that type of innovation, as you know, Ford already has a building down in the Corktown area where we're testing our autonomous vehicles. So for us, this is just a perfect example, not only to help support the city, but to really look at urban transportation challenges and begin to actually solve them right there in real time in a wonderful place like the one we're creating.
Well, and I've been to that facility. I believe it's called the Factory.
Correct. Mm-hmm.
It's just a gorgeous facility. Been up to the roof there. I mean, it's something that in non-pandemic times really brings back some of that like very city-like collaboration that you get in major top 5 cities, is to bring people physically close together, not just like have them connected by some large campus. One of the things that struck me also in this, and you mentioned it a bit, is the idea of businesses, other things. How much of this is a catalyst, and what are the kind of opportunities that people have for their project to get involved in this thing?
Yeah, so, we always like to say that this is bigger than just a Ford project because clearly we're going to be bringing 5,000 people to this area. 2,500 of them will be Ford employees, but 2,500 will be other partners. So there's a huge opportunity, and we're beginning to forge those partnerships with people who really want to come and help us co-create that future of mobility with us, because it is all about, as you said, coming together, bringing the best minds, the best talent, really from around the world locally to create this future. And we already have some of those announcements that we've made. We're partnering with New Lab, which is a great innovation company that we're working with. We were really excited to see that the state of Michigan, chose Cavenue as part of this mobility corridor that they're building out. When Bill Ford announced the project in 2018, he actually in that announcement talked about a vision for connecting the city all the way out to Ann Arbor along Michigan Avenue, which literally runs right in front of this particular development. So there's just such a huge connection and opportunity to make this not only a world-class destination, but a great asset for the city and the region.
One of the things I thought was interesting, too, was what you're going to do with the tracks out back, because that's been a really empty kind of blank spot. I shop at Honeybee Market, just literally behind the station. And when you drive over the little ramp over the tunnel that goes to Canada, you can see just this huge open space that's just, track after track that's just is not used anymore. You guys have some new plans for that.
We do. I mean, we think about the exterior spaces around the buildings that we're developing as such an opportunity to provide a mobility platform for people to test these mobility solutions that we discussed. And, that infrastructure connects to a wonderful greenway that's being developed by the Detroit River Conservancy that's going to connect the Riverfront and their new park down there. So when you start to think about all these pieces coming together, especially this mobility platform that is along the tracks, where that's all going to be revitalized, it's going to be a fabulous public space for the community, but it's also going to be a state-of-the-art connected infrastructure where we're going to be doing a lot of mobility testing with other partners who want to come and be a part of that.
Since you're talking about mobility, just to refresh folks, this is more than just the standard car that you're used to. And one of the things about creating this more dense and walkable area is kind of corralling parking. And there's this thing called the parking hub. How is that different than, say, a normal garage? And what is it that you're really looking to do with that piece?
Well, this building, I'm really excited that you mentioned that because it really isn't about just parking, even though obviously there'll still need to be a place where people can park cars. But one of the things that we learned early on in our community engagement was that we were going to actually put a parking deck and attach it to the actual train station. And folks in the Southwest area said, well, we don't want to be looking at a parking deck, which is understandable. So we started to completely reimagine what could this building be. And so we actually are going to be developing a hub, like a mobility hub, where our autonomous vehicle shuttles can come in and out of, where people will park, but it will also be a community amenity. It sits right on this trailhead that we just discussed, which is going to allow people to go to the riverfront. So imagine picking up a new type of mobility solution to get down to the riverfront. Maybe it's a place where you stop and get your bike fixed. There'll be bathrooms in that particular center. So it really becomes more of a community amenity than just a parking garage. And the design of it is really exciting because we're making sure that it really integrates into the beautiful natural environment and obviously connects to the broader development so that people can easily walk from there to the train station and the book depository and other parts of the Innovation Mobility District.
And then I would be remiss if I didn't ask you about the book depository. It's legendary over the years. It's been empty for a really long time, not taken care of. There are some extensive plans for the book depository now. They're a bit more clear, right?
Absolutely. The book depository, I kind of feel like is a little bit of the sleeper because it really is going to be the catalyst for so much of this Innovation Mobility District. Everyone's focused on the train station because it's such a beautiful building. There's so much history there. But the book depository is the perfect building to bring in a lot of entrepreneurs, create a very collaborative open office space. There's going to be this fabulous rooftop deck for people, and it's going to be just the beginning of that catalyst for innovators. So I do think when you see the designs of this building and the vision for what that building's going to be, it really is the beginning of the build out of the development. And so we're very excited to bring that building on in 2022. That will be the first building along with the Bagley parking hub that will open first. So we're very excited about that.
I guess I'll kind of wrap up here with talking about the community portion of this development. One of the things that's, I think, a little bit different for large-scale projects working in the city is I think there's sort of an expectation to work with surrounding neighborhoods, as in how this is going to be rolled out, how it's going to integrate. How has been that process, and how good do you feel about that relationship?
Ford has had a very strong relationship with the community because actually through the Ford Fund, the philanthropic arm, we've actually had a Ford Resource and Engagement Center there for almost 10 years in the Southwest community there. And they've been providing a lot of services to the community, which we're very proud of. But you know what? We've had a really good experience with the community so far. We love having conversations with them. We've had a lot of listen and learns and a lot of community meetings because we want their input. We want to understand what the community wants. And frankly, we're going to be a neighbor here, right? We're going to be a neighbor amongst all the other neighbors. And we want to make sure that we come into the community in a way that is very value added for everybody. So for us, the experience has been great. We love the input that we're getting. We've actually pivoted away from some of our plans, like I said, like the parking garage, based on the input that we've received. So it's been extraordinarily valuable.
Well, Mary Culler, thank you so much for being generous with your time today on Daily Detroit. I appreciate you. And if people want to know more, where can they go?
Well, we certainly have a Facebook page and a Michigan Central. You can go there, and we just encourage everyone to stay involved. But the Facebook page, the Michigan Central Facebook page, is a great place to engage and come along this journey with us.
Joining me on the line is Mark Wallace from the Detroit Riverfront Conservancy. Welcome to Daily Detroit.
Hey, it's great to be here.
It's a good time to talk to you because, over the years, I'm a longtime city resident, and one of the things that it's like this niche thing of like, well, why aren't there any Metroparks in Detroit? Why isn't the Metroparks more involved in the city? What is this partnership all about?
Yeah, we're really excited. Just earlier this week, we announced that the Detroit Riverfront Conservancy and the Huron-Clinton Metroparks are entering into a 7-year pilot program that will connect our organizations in a very tangible way. It will provide opportunities for people to love the Metroparks, to get familiar with the riverfront and fall in love with the riverfront, and it provides opportunity for people who know the riverfront and spend most of their time in Detroit to get to know more about the Metroparks and actually have connections out into the Metroparks system. So we're really excited about it. As you mentioned, the Metroparks doesn't have a physical location in Detroit until now, and it's been supported by a regional effort for decades. And it's neat to see. The Metroparks were originally built so that people who lived in the city would have great places to go to explore and experience out in the country. And those are really, really special assets for our entire region, and we're just thrilled to be partnering with them.
So what are some of the nuts and bolts about this? I was going through the press materials, and it's basically about widening access and greenways and things like that. What are some of the nuts and bolts around what this $6 million over 7 years is going to do?
We've started doing partnership programs with the Metroparks recently. So, they've come down for a fishing fest. They'll bring down their interpretive features, their little educational trailers come down. The kids get to see pelts of animals from around here and learn about fish and wildlife. And those episodic relationships allowed us to really get to know their team, their leadership. And what this partnership does is puts a lot of resource behind that. So you're going to start to see things from the Detroit Riverfront popping up in the Metroparks. You're going to start to see programs from the Metroparks coming down to the Riverfront. So instead of having to drive out to Kensington or Stony Creek, you can probably come down to the Detroit Riverfront sometime in 2021 and talk to some Metroparks staff, learn from some Metroparks educators. Metroparks has just great programs, and we really want to leverage our communications as well so that folks who are following us in social media and print media are able to actually learn about the Metroparks through that as well. So that's for 2 years. And during that 2-year period, while we're investing and growing that relationship, we're also going to be building an incredible park on the Detroit Riverfront, a 22-acre park. And for us, that's one of the biggest things that's ever happened on the Riverfront. For the Metroparks, that's sort of like the tiny kid brother, right? Because their spaces are usually in the hundreds of acres. But the Metroparks will take a significant leadership role in a specific component of Ralph C. Wilson Jr. Centennial Park. And that part of the park is where we actually open the site and let the river come onto the land. So there'll be opportunities for kids to see wildlife habitat. There'll be opportunities for programs and games and education around that water feature. And it's really going to be great because the Metroparks have so much beautiful water, rivers and lakes and ponds in their properties. And the Riverfront Conservancy, we've always been next to a body of water, but we've never had a significant body of water on one of our sites. So it's really exciting, and that relationship is going to continue to grow.
Outdoor spaces have been a big deal during the pandemic. What have you been seeing?
Yeah, that's right. I think I would see, like everybody has, that people are getting tired of being stuck in their houses. And I think that's especially true for people whose houses are old or their neighborhoods are in sort of a bad state of repair. And unfortunately, that's the case for a lot of people in Detroit still, despite the great progress that we've made recently. Yeah, people have started coming down to the riverfront. And, in a typical summer, our team would be trying to encourage large gatherings and sort of, the party feeling as everybody's coming together to do something, see music or go to a food truck rally. This year, what we've seen is people coming down just to be in nature. People come to the riverfront just to spend time next to that huge body of water. And people come to the riverfront just to get a little bit of exercise and get out of the house and get some sunshine on their face. So it's been amazing. We have not encouraged an increase in utilization, but we've seen a 20% increase in attendance on the riverfront, and we've seen a 40% increase on the DeQuinder Cut, which we also manage and operate. So, yeah, it's pretty amazing. People are really seeking out opportunities to be outside, and we hope that this is a trend that lasts, long beyond the COVID era. Once we get this disease under control, we hope that people will keep riding their bikes and keep going outside.
Well, it's something that's great for people to discover because I think for generations, we had kept the riverfront kind of under industrial lock and key, right? With everything from cement silos to parking lots. I mean, you name it.
Yeah.
The riverfront wasn't as accessible. What has it been like shepherding that transition over the last few years for you?
Yeah, it's been really exciting, and it's a transformational project. The work really started with Faye Nelson, who was our founding CEO, and Matt Cullen, who's our founding board chair and still our board chair. I mean, those two folks, talk about visionaries who were tenacious. They had this idea, and it was an idea that had come up several times in our community's history. Coleman Young had some similar concepts, and Hazen Pingree, even if you go all the way back to the 1800s, had some similar concepts too. But you're right, that space is all industrial, and it's very complicated. It seems almost inevitable to look at it now and say, oh, of course there should be a public space where people can come. But, those industrial uses were locked in for almost 100 years. It's been exciting to see. For me, I worked in real estate for 10 years before I came back to work with the Detroit Riverfront Conservancy. And it's nice to see things transformed, but it's especially nice to see things that are transformed and then given to the public and transformed in partnership with the public. People are never going to be able to turn these parks back into cement silos and factories. I know that for a fact. So it's pretty exciting to know that the changes that we're making are going to echo for generations.
Well, Mark Wallace, number one, thank you for the Hazen Pingree shout out. We have a small but dedicated cadre of listeners that every time Hazen Pingree gets mentioned, I get emails. So thank you for that. Unprompted. Appreciate it.
I love it.
Well, sir, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it. If people want to know more, get involved, do whatever, what can they do?
DetroitRiverfront.org has just great resources. We're going to do a lot of cool stuff this winter, too. So if you find yourself bored on a winter weekend, check out the Detroit Riverfront. There's going to be some cool things out there. And then follow us on social. Instagram and Facebook are our two main platforms. We're on Twitter as well. So really easy to stay in touch with us, and we do a lot of visual storytelling. If we're in your feed, you're going to get a lot of information just by looking at the pictures. So not a heavy lift to understand what's going on.
Well, sir, thank you so much for your time today.
Yeah, great talking to you.
And that is all for today. Thanks to Cheyenne Nocerini for some editing help behind the scenes. Remember, you can leave feedback at jer@dailydetroit.com or a voicemail at 313-789-3211, and we might just play it on the air. Bonus points for the callback in the earlier story about the ring ding ding, if you know. If you find what we do valuable, become a member at patreon.com/dailydetroit. We've had some new ones. It's been wonderful. Thank you. It really does help, and we have options from $1 up to $150 to get the word out about your organization. Something to think about. With that, I'm Jer Stays, and thank you so much for listening to Your Daily Detroit. Take care of each other, and we'll get through this together. Engine 1 is stationed at their headquarters on Liverfront.